In this lesson, we're going to talk about the modes of the major scale, with a special emphasis on how to use them as sonic tools to improvise with. The subject of modes is one that can create a lot of confusion for beginning players, even intermediate and advanced players. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at them in a way that makes sense for how I like to utilize them. Now, one of the things to consider is that there are a lot of different ways to look at this depending on what you're doing. If you're in school for classical music, composition, if you're actually worrying about playing Renaissance music or musics from different periods of time. What we're doing is an approach that's going to make sense for an electric guitar player playing contemporary styles of music, whether it's jazz, blues, rock, fusion, whatever. This is actually going to be something that's going to be a little bit more specific to that and not a general music theory lesson. In this context, we're using each of these modes as a way of reorganizing the notes of a major scale to extract new sonic colors in a very focused manner. There are many ways to think about modalizing a scale, and this is merely one of them. You're going to find other teachers online and in schools giving you all kinds of ways that you can do this. This is the way that I like to use it so that we can kind of communicate the idea of the flavor of the sounds of these scales in a way that's practical for you to use. Knowing the parent triad of each of these modes, the first, third, and fifth notes of each of these scales, is real important because that helps you define the sound of the scale, not only the major or minor or even half diminished tonality of them, but also the other notes that aren't those notes that are actually unique and give you the flavor of those modes. Another thing to consider is that in this context, if you have a lot of chords that define a major or a minor key, these modes don't really exist. You're just playing in a major scale or a minor scale. We're dealing with a situation where we use these scales over more of a static harmony, one or two chords that will allow you to actually play these notes in a way that gives you the modal sound. Last but not least, this lesson is pretty much just an overview of the modes of a major scale. You can modalize other scales, we're not going to get into that just yet, and I'm probably going to be doing a series of lessons after this one in coming weeks where we actually look at each of these sounds a little bit more in depth. This is really just to kind of demonstrate when we modalize a scale, the ways that we can take the same 7 notes and extract completely different flavors out of them. I'm Mark Wein from Jack's Guitar Tracks. If you look in the video description below, you're going to find links to the PDF that you can print out. It's a free little booklet. It gives you all the information for this lesson. You also find links to other lessons in this series that will help you understand them if some of this material is new to you or is not particularly clear at this point. And also some of the other materials I've used to teach with in the past. Books like my book, Expanded Blues Guitar, Foundations for Guitar. And also, last but not least, please hit like if you like the video and subscribe to the channel for our weekly lessons, backing tracks, and the other things that we do. So the first thing is, let's talk about what a mode is. A mode is essentially any scale that we start on a different note and actually use that as our starting point. If we look at a major scale, we have half steps between the third and fourth and the seventh and eighth notes, and everything else is a whole step apart. So in the case of C major, we get this sound. It's a very familiar sound. If I play it up to here, you really know that the next note is going to be ba, that guy right there. That is the sound of a major scale. But if we started it, for example, on the, let's start on the 6th note, and we went from the 6th note to the 6th note an octave higher, using the same notes as C major. It actually has a darker sound, it's a different sound. And essentially that's what we're trying to do with these modes, is we're trying to pull different sounds out of these scales to use for songwriting, for improvisation, for multiple uses with contemporary guitar. This lesson is kind of geared towards using this stuff for soloing, sounds that you can use for improvisation. We are going to start with our major scale. This is actually going to be based out of the G root pattern that we learned in the Cage System Complete video. If you haven't actually done that, or if any of the things I'm talking about sound kind of foreign to you at this point, you probably should go back and take a look at that lesson. So we're going to start here in C major. And there's two important things. First of all is we're going to play the scale. Then we're going to take a look at the triad within it and how we can actually use that triad in order to develop the sound of a major scale. So root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root. That's the scale right there. When we practice it, we also want to go backwards. Root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root 7, 6, 7, root. Whenever we do scales, we always want to start and end on the lowest root, partially for your ears to be trained to hear that. Now, within this scale, if we take the first, third, and fifth notes, we're going to get the major triad. And this is kind of like the framework that we hang this tonality on. So root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root. If I'm going to play a sound with these notes, sounds pretty majory, not the most exciting. But that's the major scale. That's a major scale lick. And what I'm doing is I'm emphasizing the notes in the triad and using the other notes as not quite embellishments, but they're notes that I actually resolve from. And I spend most of my time on those chord tones. That helps me actually identify this as being a major scale. The second mode, and keeping in mind the major scale, you've got half steps between the third and fourth and the seventh and eighth notes. And that's going to be kind of an important thing to think about as we go through the rest of these. The Dorian mode is the second mode, and it's built off of the second note in that major scale, which in this case is D. We have half steps between the second and third and the sixth and seventh notes. So as we start on the lowest note here on the D, you're going to see that these are all the same physical notes that we have in the C major scale, but we're actually going to identify them a little bit differently so that everything is relative to our starting point. It's almost like we've shifted gravity, and D is now the most important note. So we have root, 2, minor 3, 4, 5, 6, minor 7, root, 2, minor 3, 4, 5, 6, minor 7. I'll go back down. 6, 5, 4, minor 3, 2, root, minor 7, 6, 5, 4, minor 3, 2, root, minor 7, 6, 5, 6, minor 7, root. And then we've got a minor triad, that's the parent triad for this. So root, minor third, fifth, root, minor third, fifth. Minor third, root, fifth, minor third, root, fifth, root. Alright, for that Dorian mode, we're going for a sound. It's actually, you could use it for like a Santana. It's very much that kind of sound. I'm playing only the same pitches as the C major scale, but because I'm actually using the notes in that D minor chord as kind of my important notes, and then I'm using notes like the sixth, the major sixth, and the ninth or second, they're the same note, as color notes, suddenly I've got this, what we consider a Dorian sound. The third mode is Phrygian. Phrygian's a little different because we have a half step between 1 and 2, as well as 5 and 6. It's the third mode, and it starts on E in the key of C. Alright, so we're going to go root, minor second, minor third, fourth, fifth, minor 6, minor 7. Then we got root, minor second, minor third, fourth, fifth, minor 6. And I'll go back down. Fifth, fourth, minor third, minor second, root, minor 7, minor 6, fifth, fourth, minor third, minor second, root, minor 7, minor 6, fifth, fourth, fifth, minor 6, minor 7, root. The sound of the Phrygian scale, it's almost kind of Spanish sounding. Right? One way that I like to really get that sound, you've got this arpeggio, root, minor third, fifth, root, minor third, fifth. Any place where you got a half step right above a chord tone. So it's minor second to the root and then minor 6 to the 5. Those notes kind of bring it out. The fourth mode of a major scale is called Lydian. The Lydian scale is very much like a major scale, except for instead of having half steps between the 3rd and 4th notes and the 7th and 8th, we have them between the 4th and 5th and the 7th and 8th, which gives us kind of a little bit more of a modern major scale sound. Root, 2, 3, we're going to say sharp 4, like augmented 4, but sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, sharp 4, 3, 2, root, 7, 6, 5, sharp 4, 3, 2, root, 7, 6, 5, sharp 4, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, root. I went through those kind of quick, you've got them on the page. But the thing is with this scale, even if I go, sounds like the Simpsons theme song a little bit, right? That's a very Lydian sound. Some of the notes give it a different sound later on, but that's kind of the thing that we're going for with this one. Like a major scale, but a little different. We'll talk about uses when we do a dedicated video for this later on. The fifth mode is Mixolydian. We start on the G in this case. Root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minor 7. That's the only difference between a major scale and a Mixolydian scale. Root, 2, 3, 4, and I'll go backwards. 3, 4, root, 3, 2, root, minor 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root, minor 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minor 7, root. The thing that makes this a dominant scale is the fact that it's got a major third and a minor 7. Right? So whenever you see something that says G7, this would be the scale you would play over. Typically, this is a very boring scale by itself. What I do like to do is I like to embellish it either with chromatic passing tones or doing things where I'm playing enclosures on those notes. There are things that bring out the bluesiness that's potentially within the scale. So, and once again, this is going to be an interesting lesson later on when we do a dedicated Mixolydian lesson. The Aeolian mode is also known as the natural minor scale, or just minor. It's what we consider a minor scale. It has half steps between the 2nd and 3rd and 5th and 6th notes. The only difference between this one and a Dorian mode is that the half steps in the Dorian mode are between 2 and 3 and 7 and 6. So they're different sound. Root, 2, minor 3, 4, 5, minor 6, minor 7, root, 2, minor 3, 4, 5, minor 6, minor 7, root, 2, minor 3. I'll go backwards. 2, root, minor 7, minor 6, 5, 4, minor 3, 2, root, minor 7, minor 6, 5, 4, minor 3, 2, root. You think of it as the Aussie scale. Locrian mode is probably the one we're going to play the least, but you should still know it. It's actually a half diminished scale, and you're going to find it's also the only one that we don't use a triad for, but we're going to put the 7th in here for good reason, and you'll see in a second. So the half steps are between 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. Root, minor 2, minor 3, 4, diminished 5th, minor 6, minor 7, root, minor 2, minor 3, 4, diminished 5th, minor 6, minor 7, root. That guy right there is minor 2nd, root, minor 7, minor 6, diminished 5th, 4th, minor 3rd, minor 2nd, root, minor 7, minor 6, diminished 5th, 4th, minor 3rd, minor 2nd, root, minor 7, root. So a half diminished, there are two different kinds of 4-note diminished scales. There's one that's fully diminished, which is where you have all minor thirds. and we consider that a symmetrical chord. In a diatonic major scale, we don't have the notes to make that. What we do have is what's called a half diminished or a minor 7 flat 5 chord. Root, minor third, diminished fifth, minor 7. And that helps us distinguish the fact that this is a half diminished scale sound as opposed to a fully diminished scale sound. In this lesson, we're just getting used to the idea that every scale actually has another 6 scales involved with it. You just have to understand how to pull those sounds out of those notes.